It was the coldest night the town had seen in years. Snow fell in thick, blinding sheets, covering streets, rooftops, and trees in a silent white blanket. Most people were safely inside their warm homes, sipping tea or curled up under heavy quilts. No one imagined that, just beyond the edge of the highway, a desperate mother dog was lying in the snow, shielding her tiny puppy with her own trembling body. Her name was unknown. She was just another stray in a world too busy to notice her. But that night, she was more than a stray. She was a mother, fighting against impossible odds to protect the only family she had left. Earlier that evening, Daniel Harper had been driving home from work, tired and ready to escape the storm. The roads were nearly empty, visibility poor. He almost didn't see them. A faint movement near the roadside caught his attention, something small, shivering, barely visible through the falling snow. At first, he thought it was a pile of rags. But then the rags moved. Daniel slowed his car and leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. His heart skipped when he realized what he was seeing, a thin, exhausted dog curled tightly around a tiny puppy, both nearly buried in snow. "Oh no," he whispered. Every sensible part of him said to keep driving. The storm was getting worse, and stopping on an icy road was dangerous. But something deeper than sense pulled at him. He couldn't leave them there. He just couldn't. He parked his car on the shoulder, grabbed an old blanket from the back seat, and stepped out into the freezing wind. The cold hit him like a wall. Snow instantly covered his coat and stung his face, but he forced himself forward. As he approached, the mother dog lifted her head weakly. Her eyes were dull with exhaustion, yet still full of fierce protectiveness. She let out a soft, warning growl, too tired to sound threatening. "It's okay, girl," Daniel said gently. "I'm not going to hurt you." The puppy whimpered beneath her, a tiny, fragile sound that broke his heart. Up close, he could see how bad their condition was. The mother was painfully thin, her fur matted with ice. The puppy looked barely a few weeks old, shaking uncontrollably. Daniel knelt beside them. "You're safe now," he whispered, wrapping the blanket carefully around both of them. To his surprise, the mother dog didn't resist. It was as if she understood that this stranger was her last hope. Getting them into the car wasn't easy. The mother tried to stand but collapsed almost immediately. Daniel ended up lifting them both together, carrying them through the snow like precious cargo. Inside the warm car, he turned the heater on full blast. The puppy gave a weak cry, and the mother licked its face softly, as if telling it everything would be all right. "Hang on," Daniel said, starting the engine. "Just hang on." He drove straight to the only place he could think of, the town's small emergency veterinary clinic. The clinic was about to close when Daniel burst through the door, snow-covered and frantic, carrying the trembling dogs in his arms. "Please," he told the startled receptionist. "They need help. I found them in the storm." Moments later, Dr. Alvarez rushed them into an examination room. What followed was a long, tense night. The mother dog was severely malnourished and suffering from hypothermia. The puppy was even worse, dehydrated, weak, and dangerously close to death. For hours, the veterinary team worked tirelessly. Warm fluids were given, heating pads placed, and gentle care provided. Daniel stayed the entire time, pacing the waiting room, unable to go home. He didn't even know why he felt so responsible. They weren't his dogs. He had never seen them before. But from the moment he found them in the snow, something had connected them. Near midnight, Dr. Alvarez finally came out with an update. "The mother is stable," she said with a tired smile. "She's a strong one. She fought hard." Daniel let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "And the puppy?" The doctor hesitated. "He's still critical. But he's alive. That's a miracle in itself." Daniel nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "They both are." Over the next few days, the clinic became their temporary home. Daniel visited every chance he got, bringing soft blankets, food, and toys. The staff started calling the mother dog Hope, because of the incredible will to survive she had shown. The puppy was named Stormy, a reminder of the night that almost took his life. Hope slowly regained her strength. With proper food and care, her dull eyes began to shine again. Her tail wagged for the first time when Daniel walked into the room. Stormy's recovery was slower. There were moments when it seemed he might not make it. But each time, Hope stayed close to him, licking him, warming him, refusing to give up. Watching them together changed something inside Daniel. He had always lived a quiet, routine life: work, home, sleep, repeat. He'd never had a pet, never considered himself an animal person. But these two fragile souls had found their way into his heart. One afternoon, Dr. Alvarez pulled him aside. "They're going to need a home soon," she said gently. "A real one." Daniel looked through the window at Hope curled around her puppy. "I know," he replied softly. The truth was, he had already made up his mind. A week later, on a bright, clear morning, Daniel carried Hope and Stormy out of the clinic, not as rescuer and rescues, but as family. Bringing them home was both joyful and challenging. Hope was still nervous, afraid of sudden noises. Stormy needed constant care and attention. There were accidents on the carpet, sleepless nights, and plenty of vet visits. But there was also laughter, warmth, and a kind of love Daniel had never known before. Hope followed him everywhere, her eyes filled with gratitude. Stormy grew stronger each day, turning from a fragile little creature into a playful, energetic puppy. Neighbors who heard the story were amazed. "You saved them," one said. Daniel always shook his head. "No," he would reply. "They saved me." And in many ways, it was true. Before that snowy night, his life had felt empty without him even realizing it. Now, his house was filled with barks and wagging tails. He had a reason to hurry home after work, a reason to smile even on hard days. Months passed, and the story of the mother dog and her puppy spread through the town. People who had once ignored stray animals began donating to shelters, volunteering, and paying more attention to the voiceless creatures around them. Hope and Stormy became symbols of resilience and compassion, proof that even in the darkest storms, love can survive. One evening, as Daniel sat on his porch with Hope resting at his feet and Stormy chasing fireflies in the yard, he thought back to that terrible night. If he had driven just a little faster. If he hadn't looked to the side of the road. If he had chosen comfort over compassion. 2 beautiful lives would have been lost. Instead, they had all found each other. And as the sun set warmly over his once lonely home, Daniel understood a powerful truth. Sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest miracles. The world can be cold and cruel, like that winter storm. But it can also be gentle and full of hope, if someone is brave enough to stop, care, and help. A mother dog in the snowstorm had refused to give up on her puppy. And one ordinary man had refused to give up on them. That was where the story began. But love, that was where it truly changed everything.